Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Overseers. This is going to be a podcast about the Overwatch League, and I'm Proilios. I'm joined by my co-host Nightwing. You can say hi now.
Hey, what's up? I am Nightwing. I play the video game and not much else. Nice to meet you.
All right. So that's enough introductions. So today we are going to be reviewing the Atlanta Reigns roster for season 4 of the Overwatch League, and we are going to be doing one episode for each team like this before the season begins. And right before the season begins, we'll do like a comprehensive power rankings episode. So that'll be separate. So today will just be limited to the rain. And let's kick things off. You ready, Nightwing?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So let's start off by talking about the rain's tank line, which is Gator and Hawk. So Gator's the main tank and Hawk's the off tank, and that's pretty much all they have. So you can start off. What are your thoughts on these players?
first of all, I think Gator and Hawk are nice guys and all, but it's a bit weird that they haven't added anyone to bolster the tank line because, I understand that Gator and Hawk did well in on Atlanta Academy and they worked well together last season, but it would definitely help them if they added another piece to their tank line. Especially because in the current era of the pandemic, many players are getting burned out mentally,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's important that you have some people that you can substitute in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since the entire roster that they have right now is only 7 players, they definitely have a lot of roster space to be able to do that, and I expect they should be doing that as the season goes forward, unless there are some huge budget constraints.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Gator, I think that he is he is an average main tank for the Overwatch League level.
Mm-hmm.
I think people really liked him when he was doing his contenders run, but when he's been in the Overwatch League, I think uh, part of the reason why Atlanta feels a bit inflexible is because of him. Because it feels like um, his Orisa is really the only thing that was kind of decent, I think, last season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think his Reinhardt, while he does try to attempt to show that off, it's a bit lackluster compared to some of the better players in the league.
Yeah, true.
I think I think Hawk does well work with him. Like he Hawk works well with him, but it's not. Um, it's only an average tank line. I think it's not anything special. I think they could definitely use at least a few more pieces to really round out the tank line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree for the most part. Like when I think of Gator and Hawk, I literally just think of double shield and nothing else because that's pretty much the composition that they became sort of well known playing. Like I remember back in 2019 when they did like really well in the Contenders Gauntlet and they were just playing double shield. I think it was like the Reaper Doom meta back then, Reaper Doom Moira Lucio with double shield. They did well at that meta and then they just tried to spam double shield as much as possible in 2020, right? Because like I remember there was a meta with Winston Zarya and literally Atlanta was the only team that didn't want to play it and they were just playing double shield because they were good at it, right? So like even I feel that this is a fairly inflexible tank line. uh, like you said, Gator seems to be a pretty average main tank player, which I completely agree with. I think Hawk is a little bit better in that aspect. He plays a really solid Sigma, and his Diva is also pretty good in places. So I think he's like one of the better, like at least Western off tanks, I would say. But yeah, nothing too fantastic. Um, so
I
not.
think
Hmm,
right. Um, I think that the Winston Zarya meta that you mentioned, Hawk's Zarya is honestly not bad.
hmm,
It's probably Gator's inflexibility on the monkey or his lack of comfort on the hero that prevented them from doing that. Because apart from that, if you look at the other pieces they have, like Edison
yeah.
and the other DPS that they had, they could have definitely played that comp.
Oh yeah.
It's just that they had to sub out Gator for Pokpo, and I'm guessing they did not have very good
Synergy.
synergy with Pokpo, and so they just avoided that comp and just spam double shield because they thought, hey, Sigma's OP.
Yeah, true. So since you mentioned Edison, let's just talk about the DPS line now. And yeah, they've like the Atlanta Rain has retained Edison and Sharp from 2020, and they've also signed Pelican from Contenders Korea. So I think Pelican is a really solid signing. He's a flex DPS player for those of you who don't know, and he's been doing extremely well for O2 Blast in Contenders Korea, and he's pretty exceptional on all the flex DPS heroes that he's been fielded on in tier 2. So, like, he can play the Hanzo, Farah, Echo. Like, he plays all these heroes really well. And I think he has the potential to do, do a great job in the league if the Rain end up enabling him well enough. So, what do you think about that, Nightwing?
I think that Pelican, as an addition to the DPS line, is honestly really good. Pelican is a freak. I mean, Edison is a freak on hit scan. This guy is a freak on projectile, and he can play really good tracer as well. If you watch the LA Valiant Winter Ball, Pelican was basically just stealing the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Atlanta did not end up winning the entire thing, but Pelican like really put his name out there, even more so than any of the other players on Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And as for Edison, I mean, I really respect Edison. I think he has a great amount of skill, and he's been trying to carry the team for quite a while now.
Yeah.
I think that in terms of the DPS line, something that really hurt Atlanta was Baby Bay leaving the Atlanta last year
Yeah.
during season 3, because he was really a leadership figure and someone that builds a team atmosphere. Because if you remember from season 2, the kind of attitude or the kind of team morale that Atlanta had was kind of this kind of bad boy kind of aesthetic that was built on
Mm-hmm.
mostly by Baby Way, and then bolstered a bit by players like Defran. They had this kind of swagger about them.
Yeah.
I think in season 3, they lost a bit of that attitude and that kind of team identity, and it's been kind of a split between Korean players like Edison and then Western players like Gator and Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're having a hard time figuring out what the new team identity is. It seems to be a bit more calm now, not
Yeah.
quite as much in your face. And I think they could really do with someone that could be a leadership figure. I think currently the person closest to a leadership figure is probably the short caller Masaa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but from the looks of it, he could probably be doing a better job at that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Edison was like a maniac on Tracer in 2020. Like, they pretty much fielded him on Tracer for most of the season because he was like a carry level player on that hero. And like one good thing about him is that he's fairly flexible, right? He can play Tracer, he can play all the traditional hit scan heroes, and then we've also seen him playing heroes like Genji and Doomfist and things like that, which he does a fairly good job on. So, like, I think in terms of raw talent, he's got a good share of it. But looking at the hit scan market overall, which is just being like added to in this season through the signings from tier 2, I'm not sure if he can quite keep up. Like, I think he is pretty talented, but like, if you talk about Tracer, right, you've still got players like Striker, you've got Sebiobi, you've got Carpe, you've got Decay. There are still a lot of talented Tracer players, and even in terms of hit scan, you've got players like, XZ, you've got Lip, Happy, KSP, players like these. So, like, there are bigger names out there, and there are players that I think can outshine him with not much effort, just based on the foundation that Atlanta is showing right now. So yeah, that those are my thoughts on Edison. And a third player that, as he was left out in the league a bit, we left him out of the conversation, which is Sharp. So, what are your thoughts on him? Do you think he can be good this season?
If someone would believe Reinforce at the beginning of 2020, he is apparently the second coming of Christ. He is. I think the performances that we saw from him were not that great, but he's a serviceable player. I would say probably a bit below league average in terms of DPS, but that's just because there are insane players in the league now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sharp is a talent that they may be able to develop, and I mean, at least he's there, unlike the tank line, which doesn't have a third player to really do anything.
Hmm.
And I think he may help for just being there as a substitute, really, because I don't think he's really good enough to be fielded over Edison and Pelican right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
That
yeah, go on, go on.
no, I mean that's pretty much all I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? I think he could be good for the Rain, but like I can't really put my finger on how good he actually is because he's not been fielded that much in the Overwatch League, and I mean, he did seem to do well in contenders when he was with Envy. He won, I think, 2 seasons of contenders with them. But after that, when he was brought into the Reigns roster, he hasn't been playing a lot. So I don't really know how well he will do. So it'll be interesting to see if at all he gets fielded over Edison or Pelican at some point.
I think Sharp definitely has the mechanical skill to be able to go toe to toe with other people in the league. It's just that he's been benched for a while because I did see his performance in Envy and he did quite well there,
Yeah.
even on hit scans. But um, I think he's just not been given enough opportunity because they have a freak like Edison playing over him. As for Edison himself, eh, you're saying that he's not quite up there with the likes of Carpe and Decay and all, but I think that um, over the course of him being in the league, he has been probably one of the least problematic but still highly skilled DPS players. I
Hmm.
think he's been highly consistent and he has had a good mental, and I think that is one of the most important things that you can have. You look at so many of these players, even someone like a superstar like Ans.
Hmm.
The issue is that with the current environment, there is so much mental pressure, and that people are cracking down because of it. And Edison is not doing that, and I do have to respect him for that. I think he can definitely um, go toe to toe with some of these top players. It's just that some of his other teammates are a bit lackluster,
Hmm.
and the coaching is a bit lackluster, and he's that's why he's not able to realize his full potential.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Those are some pretty good points there. And I think in terms of just like since you mentioned keeping the mental steady, um, I'm just thinking of their like the range selection of Pelican, right? Because he's a really young player, and I think this might be like his signing might be a long-term investment for the Rain because he's more likely to stick around. And I think it's going to be very critical for him as well to maintain his mental in case this team again turns out to be inflexible in the 2021 season. So I just feel like good luck to him despite like his raw mechanical skill. I'm sure he can do fantastic on his own, but just overall in this team culture, I just hope he can retain his mental because he'll be a wonder to watch in the league, I feel. So yeah, let's I think move on to the support line, which is Masaa on main support and Iris on flex support. Um, you already mentioned Masaa earlier, right? That he can be a leadership figure for the Rain, but if you can just elaborate on like what you think of his skills, you can that'll be great.
Right. I think Masa is probably one of the better players on the team, honestly, because he has been quite consistent and he has not been disappointing. He has been, while not top tier, um, you can't really call him the equal to Moss or anything, but he has been consistent and he's never really been the one that is at fault. I think
Mm.
uh, that might just be because the rest of the team has had a lot more issues than him. But I think Masa is a solid player. It's just that I mean, main support is such a position that it's hard to be a superstar player. But even then, maybe Masa is not the best of them, but Masa is serviceable. I think Iris played really well with Team Doge when he was in contenders alongside Kevster and Onigod. I think when coming into the league, he has been not that great. Um, and maybe some more experience will really help him. And of course, now he'll get a lot of experience considering that these are the only two supports. So all the scrims will go through these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, they can build enough synergy this season. But again, this is only a 7-man squad. The only extra piece they have is one DPS. I think they should really be looking into signing more supports and tanks. So the team has a bit more breathing room.
Mm-hmm. I like on the point about Iris. I think yeah, he can. I think he can be an average flex support. You mentioned Team Doge, but if you remember, he was also on third impact, and he like the team did quite well when he played for third impact, and after that, when he was brought into the league again, he was just like overshadowed by Dogman last year in terms of just getting more playtime. Got more playtime. Like Iris played towards the end of the season a little bit more, but again, not enough for at least me to judge how good he actually is. But I think he can be decent, and although I agree with the Iris, like the points you made about Iris, I don't agree with the Masaa one so much. I think he hit a slump in 2020 compared to how he played in season 2, right? I don't know if it was because he had to play a lot more Brig. Like he basically didn't have to play Brig in season 2 uh, because that at that time, like during GOATs, the DPS players played Brig and he could play Lucio. But last year, I didn't find him that impressive, and there were a lot more main supports that put on some really great performances. Like even if you think of Western players, right? Players like Funny Astro and uh, Moth and FD God. Like these players come to mind when you really think of a Western main support, and Masaa really didn't stand out to me at all. So I tend to think of him at least going into season 4 as like a below average main support, I would say. But yeah, let's see if he and Iris can build up some good synergy, and then maybe this could be like a surprising turn of events for me. Um, but yeah, do you have any more points to add about the supports?
Yeah, I think I should probably add. I think you're right. Iris was on third impact. It's just that they were in the same bracket for so long and they kept playing against each other. I they like third impact and Doge have played like 50 matches together.
Yeah,
So I don't even remember at this point.
yeah, because
Um,
I didn't remember him being on Doge, so I just like yeah, I just
I'm sorry, Iris.
that's okay.
I didn't want to put you on the dog team.
Uh,
Apart from that, I think Massa definitely had a slump in 2020 compared to 2019. Um, but I think he has room to improve. And he's a solid player, and he doesn't seem to have a bad mental. I think I keep mentioning this over and over again, but that is really important in a esport with such high turnover, where
yeah.
you have to keep interacting with new players because your old ones keep getting called washed and kicked out of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can, if nothing else, be a stable ground for the team to stand on, even if that ground is not uh, that that great compared to some of the more eminent supports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Apart from that, I think the support line is fine. Just could use a bit more players.
Yeah, it could use an upgrade, I would say. I, I think if you can have like one playmaking support in there, no matter if it's a main support or a flex support, I think like have a top tier support in there, and this team can get a little bit more competitive for sure.
I'm definitely expecting more signings to come out of the Atlanta Reign because they're a hugely popular team. I don't expect there would be huge budget constraints. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I don't have that much inside info, but that's what it seems to be like.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I think finally let's just talk about the coaching situation, right? Because they've got Sephy for the third year in a row, and I'm not sure if Sephy is going to really deliver like third time. I don't think the third time is going to be the charm. Like he needs to propel the Reign to be a championship roster at this point, I think. Um, but he seems to be falling short, right? I'm just not impressed with his work or just how the team has been structured thus far. Like I think after like he was initially on Selfless, right? He was coaching Selfless, and then the team was disbanded, and then he coached the Shock for a little bit, I think. I don't remember for how long, maybe the whole of season one. I don't remember, but I think the situation is a little bit similar to Arrows in the sense that he's been given one too many chances. But yeah, I'll let you pitch in on that before I go any further.
I think that while Sephy did a good job on Selfless, the same spawn capping strat is not going to work in the Overwatch League, and it hasn't. You've seen any team that Sephy has been coaching be kind of disappointing, in the sense that while he did set up the Shock for success somewhat by working on the SF Shock in season one, he didn't actually get anything done for that season,
Yeah.
which, defenders of the Shock, and I'm a Shock fan myself, but I think that uh, people would defend that by saying, they're setting them up for success, and look how they've flourished in the past 2 years. But apart from that, if you look at what the teams that Sephy happens to be on are actually achieving, it's quite disappointing because he seems to be determined to get them to the exact middle of the table every time. And that has been the case with the Atlanta Reign for the past 2 seasons, and that's what it's looking like this season as well. Except that last season, um, a lot of the people are looking at the Atlanta Reign were thinking that they're going to be top three, top two, but they were not.
Oh yeah.
So if they're already looking like a middle of the team pack team right now, then I'm a bit scared for the Atlanta Reign under the hands of Sephy. They've also let go of Casaurus, which I think they've really dropped the ball on that one, because that Casaurus is an exceptional coach as well, and I
Yeah.
think he's doing some great work with the SF Shock now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they had tried to work out some differences with him or tried to give him better opportunities, they could have turned this roster around with that one coach. Um, well, not turn the roster around, but they could have at least done some better work, maybe.
Was Casares let go, or did he just part ways with the team? I'm not entirely sure.
I think the specifics were not made public, but
Okay,
I may just have missed it. I am not as attached to Twitter as I was a few months ago.
for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I completely agree. I think, like, do you think they should have just like they should have just let Sephy go this season and signed a new head coach?
Um, it seems like an experiment. I um, I think Sephy has been disappointing, and there is no shortage of coaches per se,
Mm-hmm.
but that's ultimately an administrative decision. I can only speculate. I guess it would have been a good experiment, but for someone running an org, I'm not sure what the right decision is. That's probably why the other people get paid the big bucks to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this seems very similar to the Aero situation to me. I think this is probably the final chance Sephy is going to get to make something happen with this team. Right, this is the third year in a row that going to be coaching them, and like honestly, if you're coaching a team over like multiple years, the idea has to be to develop the team or like get them to improve over time, right? And in seasons 2 and 3, like yes, they were still a competitive team, but they were never quite top tier. And I don't know if his roster for this year, it seems to me like they are going in reverse, right? They are not trying to go for the championship. They are just becoming a little bit less impressive, according to me. Like at least in 2020, uh, they had substitute tanks. Even they had got Popov to play Winston, and they had got Fried as a substitute off tank. But like right now, they don't have any other options on tank or support. So like you said, so I'm not sure where this team is going with under Sephy's leadership. Mm.
I
So
am highly expecting that they will sign someone. Otherwise, it would be quite stupid, honestly. Um, Considering that Fried has gone over to Titans and so has Fire, they'll probably just try and find better replacements to those. I think there's still some time for the Atlanta Reign to make some moves, but um, I think certain deadlines have passed, so we might be seeing that. a tournament or two into the season, which might just be too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they are like if Sephy's looking to scout more players after the season begins and then sign them, or if he's just happy with this core and he wants to just run them in every single meta. But I honestly don't think it's going to work out, knowing that the hero pools of at least the tank line are so restricted, right? So I'm a little bit concerned for this team,
Yeah,
at least on an
I'm
objective
especially
level.
concerned. I'm especially concerned about Winston play from the Atlanta Rain
True.
because I don't think Gator will do quite that well on Winston. That's why they always sub Popo in. It's because Gator is not that comfortable on that hero, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Um, if he can work around that deficiency, then all the power to him. But it's easier, and there's definitely spots available to just put a Winston player in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think some of the signing is also being made by Paul, who is the CEO and GM of the Atlanta Rain.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be some kind of management issue there as well because the head coach um, is American and the the GM is Taiwanese. I hope they're not having um, communication issues, which might explain the kind of decisions that are being made so far.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if like there will be highly impactful communication issues at the management level, because I'm sure they'll have like translators to help them out. Uh, but yeah, you're right. I mean, this team is like giving me really odd vibes at the moment. So I'm not sure where to place them. But what do you think should be the Reigns' goal going into season 4?
Honestly, if you look at the kind of teams that are being prepared for the next season, uh, I think it might be too late for the Rain to really make
Mm-hmm.
a move to be top dog in their region
Oh yeah, definitely.
because there are monster teams in both regions now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with Philly moving to Asia. There's still the shock in NA.
Mm-hmm.
They can aim to be slightly better, but I mean, I doubt they will be anything but the middle of the pack unless there is some kind of seriously good addition that other teams have not scouted somehow,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is extremely unlikely.
Yeah, true. I think even if they are competitive in multiple metas, that'll still be commendable for this team. Because if the meta is not double shield, I don't think at face value this team is going to be very good, right? Especially if it's a dive meta. So yeah, it makes sense that they are probably scouting for like you said, a Winston player. But if they are not, then it's completely their loss, and I think it's going to like come back to bite them in a big fashion. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I think we've gone through pretty much the entire roster at this point. So, do you have any closing thoughts about this team before we end the podcast?
Please sign more players.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think yeah, that's definitely one thing they have to do, man. Like, it's just not like from what we've even seen in the past. If you remember, the biggest problem even with Boston last year, they just had two DPS players who couldn't cover all of the different heroes. I mean, yeah, we'll go into Boston in their own separate episode, but just historically, having fewer players has proven to damage teams severely. If you look at teams like the Shock, who just had like Krusty had covered pretty much all the different heroes that can be played in Overwatch. He made sure that he had at least one or two players that could play every hero to a high level, and just like smart scouting like that can really help or hurt a team, depending on if you do it. So yeah, I think that's all from my side. Do you have anything more to add?
No, I think we're good.
All right, so yeah, I think that we'll round it up for this podcast. And thanks a lot for those of you that have gotten in so far. And do remember to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We'll be doing a ton more episodes like these, going over all of the different teams. And if you guys have any questions about this podcast, you can add them to the comment section, and we'll try and answer them to the best of our ability in the next episode. And I think in the next session we'll be discussing about the Dallas Fuel. So be sure to tune in for that. If you subscribe, you'll get a notification as well. And I'll also be posting a link to my blog, in case you guys haven't checked it out already, in which you can find all sorts of different articles about Overwatch. Like, I write about the league separately, I write educational posts, interviews, and yeah, that's, you guys can just check that out. So,
He'll teach you how to eat gravs.
oh yeah, yeah, it's a work in progress. Like, there are many more education posts which are work in progress, but yeah, they're coming. So yeah, once again, thanks a lot for listening, and we'll sign out. Bye bye.